Think about all the things that need to happen for a human settlement to thrive. Obtaining food, building shelter, raising children, and more. There needs to be a way to divide resources, organize major efforts, and distribute labor efficiently. Now imagine having to do this without any sort of planning or higher-level communication. Welcome to the ant colony.
They have populated the Earth for around 130 million years. 10 trillion ants weigh roughly as much as the entire human race. Every single one toils hard for its colony.
There are approximately 20 quadrillion ants currently on planet Earth, according to the latest scientific estimate. The journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2022 reached this conclusion by synthesizing data from almost 500 studies on insect diversity covering all continents, major biomes, and habitats. Around 20 quadrillion, that's 20 million billion ants, weigh around 12 megatons. Based on the number of ants, the researchers worked out that their total global biomass is up to 12 megatons of dry carbon, which is just 20% of humanity's total biomass. If ants teamed up with other land insects, however, they would easily crush the weight of all humans. The total fresh weight of all land insects and arthropods, not including aquatic species, was around 1 billion tons. Comparatively, the weight of humans is around 400 million tons and livestock is approximately 600 million tons. There are over 15,700 named species and subspecies of ants known to science. However, it's estimated that the true number of species could be double this. Ants can be found on every continent on Earth, except Antarctica, although there are no native species found in Iceland, Greenland, parts of eastern Polynesia, and a few of the most remote islands. It's estimated that nearly 2/3 of ant species are found in just two types of ecosystem, tropical forests and savannas. Although considering there's a lack of data on ant populations from parts of Asia and Africa, there are likely to be gaping holes in the knowledge of ant diversity. Ants emerged between 140 and 168 million years ago. This was within the Jurassic period, characterized by a warm and lush wet climate that gave rise to an abundance of life, most notably a wealth of dinosaurs. It's believed that ants evolved at this time as it was also the period when flowering plants emerged, providing small insects with food that allowed them to thrive and diversify.
Since 1989, Christoph Klein-Eidam has been researching into how swarms of ants organize themselves and communicate.
Das einzelne Tier ist keine Intelligenz.
Individual ants aren't all that brainy, but they can learn all kinds of things, and are amazingly good at getting their bearings. What's fascinating about a colony like this is that these complex structures can be built up through work sharing. And of course, the individual ant has no idea what its nest looks like or how it's structured. It merely acts on the basis of the information it's just received and the experience it's gathered in the past.
In spring, as soon as the first rays of sunshine warm up the anthill, and depending on where the sun happens to be shining, dense cushions start to form. The ants begin sunbathing and heat up their bodies intensely in the process. The thermal image makes this visible. In the blue area, the ant's body temperature is around 10 degrees. In the yellow-orange area, it's almost 30 degrees. Several of these warmed-up workers disappear inside the anthill. They carry their hot breath to the brood and exhale there. Orange and yellow indicate rising temperatures. The warmer it gets, the better their offspring thrive. Ants like these work as heat carriers. They're highly specialized in this one single activity.
This swarm intelligence that we see in fish and birds is reflected once again in social insects, through this individual behavior displayed by single creatures. And that leads to the formation of substructures in the colony. There are specialists and there are generalists, and individual creatures take over the tasks depending on their context.
Ants can carry up to 20 times their own body weight. Some of them clean up especially eagerly. Others briefly exchange information by touching their antennae. And other ants look after their young queen. She will provide for offspring for a long time to come.
Ants have some of the most complex social organization in the animal kingdom, living in structured colonies containing different types of members who perform specific roles. But although this may sound similar to some human societies, this organization doesn't arise from any higher-level decisions, but is part of a biologically programmed cycle. In many species, all the winged males and winged virgin queens from all the nearby colonies in the population each leave from their different nests and meet at a central place to mate, using pheromones to guide each other to a breeding ground. After mating, the males die off, while females try to establish a new colony. The few that are successful settle down in a suitable spot, lose their wings, and begin laying eggs, selectively fertilizing some using stored sperm they've saved up from mating. Fertilized eggs grow into female workers who care for the queen and her eggs, build and defend the colony, and forage for food, while unfertilized eggs grow into males whose only job is to wait until they are ready to leave the nest and reproduce, beginning the cycle again. So how do worker ants decide what to do and when? Well, they don't really. Although they have no methods of intentional communication, individual ants do interact with one another through touch, sound, and chemical signals. These stimuli accomplish many things, from serving as an alarm to other ants if one is killed, to signaling when a queen is nearing the end of her reproductive life. But one of the most impressive collective capabilities of an ant colony is to thoroughly and efficiently explore large areas without any predetermined plan. Most species of ants have little or no sense of sight and can only smell things in their vicinity. Combined with their lack of high-level coordination, this would seem to make them terrible explorers. But there is an amazingly simple way that ants maximize their searching efficiency, by changing their movement patterns based on individual interactions. When two ants meet, they sense each other by touching antennae. If there are many ants in a small area, this will happen more often, causing them to respond by moving in more convoluted, random paths in order to search more thoroughly. But in a larger area with less ants, where such meetings happen less often, they can walk in straight lines to cover more ground. While exploring their environment in this way, an ant may come across any number of things, from threats or enemies to alternate nesting sites. And some species have another capability known as recruitment. When one of these ants happens to find food, it will return with it, marking its path with a chemical scent. Other ants will then follow this pheromone trail, renewing it each time they manage to find food and return. Once the food in that spot is depleted, the ants stop marking their return, the scent dissipates, and ants are no longer attracted to that path. These seemingly crude methods of search and retrieval are in fact so useful that they are applied in computer models to obtain optimal solutions from decentralized elements, working randomly and exchanging simple information. This has many theoretical and practical applications, from solving the famous traveling salesman problem to scheduling computing tasks and optimizing internet searches, to enabling groups of robots to search a minefield or a burning building collectively without any central control. But you can observe these fascinatingly simple yet effective processes directly through some simple experiments by allowing ants to enter empty spaces of various sizes and paying attention to their behavior. Ants may not be able to vote, hold meetings, or even make any plans, but we humans may still be able to learn something from the way that such simple creatures are able to function so effectively in such complex ways.
Leafcutter ants are real long-distance specialists. On the way from their nest to a food source, They can cover around 200 meters, a huge distance for such a tiny creature. And they always take the fastest route back and forth, like on a motorway. That's how they save energy.
For me,
swarm intelligence in social insects is the ability to distribute the work among lots of individuals. What's amazing here is that they're incredibly flexible. They're able to respond rapidly to changing environmental conditions and to redistribute the labor.
With a large experimental setup, Christoph Klein-Eidam wants to demonstrate just how cleverly leafcutter ants organize themselves. His assistant Tim uses orange juice to stick tracking marks on food. At the end of an ant trail divided into 2 sections, the researchers mix the tracking leaves among blackberry leaves, which for leafcutter ants are real treats. Scouts form the vanguard. From their nest, inside a fungus, more ants follow. The researchers' racetrack helps. Just 10 minutes later, the first insects arrive at the destination. An ant trail quickly develops on the long track. The short track to the left of the picture is still closed. Loaded with food, including the tracked leaves, the first ones begin the return journey. The rush hour begins. Some start cutting the leaves. Others immediately drag the fragments away. The more leaf sap fills the air, the busier it gets. So-called hitchhikers protect food and their fellow ants. With all this activity, information starts to flow, about the size of the food source, for example, by means of pheromones, as shown in graphically enhanced super slow motion. Every ant uses these messenger substances to mark its path. Since pheromones dissipate quickly, they all do this, soldiers and workers alike. As a result, they all know where to go. And more blackberry leaves land up at the entrance to the nest. This is how the leafcutters feed their fungus, which serves as their food source. It's definitely efficient. Christoph Klein-Eidam demonstrates the intelligent side effect of the ant's pheromone language and opens the short trail. For a while, the ants use the long trail just as much as the short one. But that changes quickly.
As soon as this short trail here was opened and the first ants found it, the leaf carriers were much faster along this trail. During this shorter time, less of the pheromone evaporated, and this mechanism caused the traffic to shift from one side to the other. Programmers have taken advantage of these components to regulate internet traffic. In other words, wherever the data packets are faster, the signal stays stronger. Ultimately, that's just what we're seeing here. The data packet here is an ant carrying a leaf.